a remote island in the Pacific Ocean. A place forgotten by time. Here, in one of the last great ocean sanctuaries, a mysterious parade of giant sharks passes. Most are pregnant females about to give birth. What has drawn them here? And where are they going? Researchers have come to the Galápagos island chain to track these dinosaurs of the sea. To follow them wherever they travel across the globe. On a journey of discovery to the Galápagos, realm of giant sharks. Jutting out from the sea, at the far northern end of the Galápagos archipelago, is an ancient crumbling volcano called Darwin Island. A group of scientists working under the auspices of the Galápagos National Park has just arrived. In the swirling currents below, something else is slowly approaching. It's a whale shark, the largest fish ever to have lived. It's part of a steady stream of giant sharks that passes by Darwin Island. This team is hoping to find out what draws them to this tiny stretch of ocean. And where are they going? They wait on a rocky reef. Finally, a massive silhouette appears. At about 12 meters in length, this female is almost fully grown. The team rises up to meet her. They'll attach satellite tracking devices, anchoring them in the thick skin on her back. In his log, team leader Jonathan Green describes the encounter.
The shark had barely flinched, so at this point I swim down towards her head. Once in front, I turn and let the current carry me the full length of her body past the tail. Her colossal size is apparent as her body slides by. The whale shark continues placidly on her way, seemingly unaware of the procedures going on around her.
Whenever she breaks the surface, her tags will relay her location via satellite to the scientists. Ranger, as this whale shark is called, is now part of one of the most ambitious studies of marine animal migration ever undertaken. For several weeks, she stayed just north of the Galápagos Islands. Then she headed south and east to the coast of Peru, over 1,000 kilometers away. Rangers is not the only incredible journey documented by this team. Take the case of Jaws, another mature female. With tag in place, Jaws headed north and west, out into the rugged undersea terrain of the Galápagos Rift Zone. She appeared to be going out to sea. Instead, she turned around and made her way back to the Galápagos Islands. Like Ranger, she too went south to the coast of Peru. Then there's Kimberly, a mere teenager at 5 meters in length. She arrived at Darwin Island with Jaws and followed her to the west. Kimberly split off, veering to the south. Her route took her to another rugged zone known as the East Pacific Rise. Along the way, Kimberly zigzagged through the ocean in a pattern probably associated with feeding. At a point 3,500 kilometers away from Darwin Island, the transmissions showed that her tag had detached and was floating on the surface. Another creature could have bitten it off. She may have removed it herself by rubbing up against rocks. Or she might have been caught by fishermen who discarded it. Where were these sharks headed? Were they following familiar routes? Or possibly shifts in water temperatures? Or the availability of food? These are questions that captured the imagination of Jonathan Green, a naturalist and photographer who has worked in the Galápagos for over 2 decades.
This is a real-life Jurassic Park situation because we've got a 60-70 million year old animal in terms of the species. Sharks have been around for perhaps 300 million years, so they're definitely members of the dinosaur era. How can it be that we know more about mice or about the ant than we do about a whale shark?
Jonathan enlisted scientists from the Galápagos National Park, the Charles Darwin Foundation, and the Marine Animal Tracking Program at the University of California at Davis, in an ambitious project to study the movements of whale sharks that pass by Darwin Island. Whale sharks belong to an ancient class of fish whose bones are made of cartilage, and to a subclass that includes sharks and rays, the elasmobranchs. At full size, a whale shark can reach 18 meters in length and 30 tons. Over a lifetime that can last 70 years, these giants roam the oceans, scooping up a diet of plankton, krill, and small fish. Whale sharks have long been hunted on a small scale for their liver oil, used as waterproofing for wooden boats. Known as tofu sharks, they are now targeted by industrial fishing fleets for their characteristic white meat. Whale sharks are now under the protection of the Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species, or CITES. There is a growing momentum to safeguard them, especially in countries where tourists spend millions of dollars each year to swim with these gentle giants. Most attempts to track them have begun in places where they come together in large numbers, like the Sea of Cortez off the Pacific coast of Mexico. Here, billions of tiny crustaceans called copepods hatch at once, turning the sea a milky gray. That draws dozens of whale sharks to feed on them. You can often see them feeding vertically to get at the dense food concentrations. This is only one of many gathering spots for whale sharks. You can find them off the coast of Belize, where they feed on the eggs of snapperfish that spawn here in spring. Or you can find them off the coast of Western Australia, where corals spawn in massive numbers just after the full moons of March and April. The docile nature of whale sharks is what allows the Galapagos team to approach them, then to clip DNA samples from fins or place satellite tracking tags into their skin. But if startled, a whale shark is capable of moving swiftly out of reach. At full size, a whale shark is powerful and potentially dangerous. On his journey to the Galapagos Islands, Charles Darwin noted the singularly low temperature of the surrounding water brought here by the Great Southern Polar Current. For thousands of humpback and other whales, it offers a free ride north from summer feeding grounds off Antarctica. The Humboldt Current is thought to have transported many of the unique creatures that Darwin observed on these islands. From the mainland, giant tortoises were probably washed into the sea by storms. The current carried them across the 1,000 kilometers of ocean to reach the Galapagos. Down through the generations, the tortoises adapted to unique local conditions and developed differences, especially in their shells. Iguanas most likely arrived on rafts of vegetation. Once here, they adapted to feeding within intertidal zones. It's in the sea that the Humboldt Current has had its greatest impact. Rising up onto the Galapagos Plateau, the Humboldt mixes with the cool waters of the Cromwell Current, surging in from the Pacific, and with warmer currents moving down from the equator. That combination sets off an explosion of sea life. Manta rays arrive to sift the upper levels of the ocean for microscopic plankton. When conditions are right, sardines, anchovies, mackerel, and other bait fish fill the seas. That can attract legions of striped marlin from around the region and beyond. Watching for a school to be caught out in the open, these swift predators dart up from below. The school closes ranks, forming a bait ball. Sea lions join the attack. The school evades them by twisting and turning as one. But as fatigue finally sets in, the predators move in to pick off individuals. Moving through these fertile waters, riding the northbound current, a mysterious line of whale sharks is headed for a tiny, remote outpost, Darwin Island. What draws them here? That's the question this team is hoping to answer as they too arrive at Darwin Island. Their strategy is simple: wait on the rocks. If no whale sharks pass by, they'll swim out into the current to search for them in open water.
After 30 minutes close to the rocks, we head out to the blue. And almost immediately spot a large female whale shark. Clear markings, probably young. She is pregnant and measures around 11 meters. I'm able to get alongside and shoot the dart through the dorsal fin, about 2/3 of the way close to the leading edge. The dart goes all the way through, about 15 centimeters of cartilage.
Then, the team witnesses a scene that can only deepen the mystery of these giant sharks. Another female suddenly appears. It converges on the first, then gives it a shove with its snout. Was this a show of strength or some other signal just between sharks? Their two paths diverge into the deep. The expedition is off to a great start. At least that's how it appeared on its second day.
The current remains to the north, but is fluctuating. Sea surface temperature still high, 25 degrees centigrade. Big schools of hammerheads pass by, out in the blue and down deep below us. We do a shallow dive before lunch, as skipjack tuna are feeding close to the anchorage. Bright streams of quicksilver weave a complicated dance with sharks. Late afternoon, we photograph the sunset over Darwin. And the light catches the spray from the crashing breakers. The arch appears to capture the last beams of sunlight, like a magnifying glass, concentrating them into a single spotlight of white and gold. Quite ethereal, but then, so is the experience we are living.
Hold on tight. 1, 2, 3, go.
Day 3 brings an unexpected shift in the currents that swirl around Darwin. the northbound flow has shifted to the south. The hammerheads are now schooling much closer to the reef. The whale sharks seem to have disappeared altogether.
Conditions are far from optimum as the current has swung around 180 degrees. Ending the dive with a drift, we swim through a tornado of jacks. And in less than 3 minutes are being sucked in behind the arch. Time to surface quickly before we get taken over the platform and into the maelstrom of crashing waves.
One of the tagged sharks has surfaced 40 kilometers north and west of Darwin Island. It's following the same route taken by Jaws and Kimberley. Are these sharks following the flow of food driven by the Humboldt Current? Or are they pursuing some other imperative? Consider their response to conditions below Darwin's Arch. As deep currents hit the island, they carry a flood of nutrients to the surface. As a result, the rocky reefs beneath the arch are enveloped by what one biologist called a great wall of mouths. Everything from microscopic zooplankton to schools of fish. Moving through them are predators such as sharks and jacks, along with those giant filter feeders, the whale sharks. And yet, even as they encounter enormous schools of small fish and dense plankton, they keep their mouths shut tight. There must be another reason they're coming here.
We know that they're coming here for a specific reason, but it's got to be something important enough that we see literally hundreds of whale sharks in an area like the Darwin Arch during the season, and we don't see whale sharks anywhere else in the Galapagos archipelago. So they're coming to Darwin's Arch for a specific reason. I still think that the whale sharks are coming here for birthing. One thing that just about all the big female whale sharks have in common is that they're pregnant. They seem to be in an advanced stage of pregnancy, and so we think that they're probably birthing down at depth.
If not in the deep channels surrounding Darwin Island, then perhaps these females are giving birth out in the Galapagos Rift Zone to the north. This region took shape millions of years ago when titanic sections of the Earth's crust began pulling apart. The nooks and crannies of the ocean bottom could offer myriad safe havens for infant whale sharks to grow. Where and when the females give birth is just one of the mysteries of whale shark reproduction. One of the longest documented whale shark journeys was made by a mature female named Rio Lady. She was tagged off Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula in the year 2007 by researchers from Florida's Mote Marine Lab and Mexico's Domino Project. They watched as she headed over to the coast of Cuba, then turned south into the Caribbean. Past Jamaica, she turned and swam straight for the Atlantic Ocean. Moving out to the middle of the Atlantic, Rio Lady crossed the equator. That's where her tag stopped transmitting, after a journey of more than 7,000 kilometers. But that wasn't the end of Rio Lady. 4 years later, scientists photographed her back off the Yucatan, identifying her by her spots. She had returned as part of the largest known gathering of whale sharks, with hundreds arriving to feed on eggs spawned by a type of tuna. If Rio Lady's story is any indication, whale sharks swim with a purpose, with clear routes and destinations. Wherever the whale sharks of the Eastern Pacific are giving birth, many are following a path that takes them past a narrow reef below Darwin's Arch. How do they find their way here? The answer may lie in another shark species, the scalloped hammerhead. The data shows that while hammerheads travel throughout the region, they congregate in large numbers only where strong south currents sweep the edges of Darwin and nearby Wolf Island. It's a remarkable sight, considering that these strange creatures were practically fished out of here in the mid-1990s. Their population surged again with protections offered by the Galápagos Marine Reserve, established in 1998. Since then, Darwin and Wolf Islands have become a mecca for divers who come from all over the world to take in the spectacle. Hammerheads are among the few sharks that must always swim forward to force water through their gills. Facing into the current here during the day offers them a period of rest. The warm surface waters may also aid their digestion. After a day spent at the reef, the hammerheads peel off into the surrounding waters, where they use their acute senses to hunt. How do they find their way back to Darwin through the featureless and murky depths? Sea turtles, along with some migrating bird species and whales, are thought to orient themselves by reading the alignment of Earth's magnetic field. If sharks possess their own navigational supersense, it's probably related to sensory abilities that have allowed them to thrive all these millions of years. The snouts of most sharks are dotted with specialized organs that pick up electrical impulses given off by the heartbeats or muscle action of prey. Research shows that hammerheads may use this electrical mastery to read magnetic signals given off by volcanic formations that lead like roads up the sides of Darwin and other landmarks strewn about the world's oceans. Whale sharks may be reading these same signals, but that doesn't mean they always arrive on cue. Day 5, the team spreads out on the rocks to increase the chances of spotting a whale shark. With none in sight, they move out into the blue and drift. Toward the end of the scheduled 40-minute dive, a whale shark finally appears. But it's about 40 meters down. It will take considerable effort to reach it. And their air is already running low.
I see her. Deeper than where I am. A few more kicks is all it would take.
With few other sharks around, Jonathan decides to take the risk. The shot bounces off the dense tissue at the base of the fin. Jonathan signals a team member to try another tag. But there's just not enough time. As the shark swims off into the deep, they must rise up slowly to expel the excess nitrogen that builds up in divers' bodies at depth and can lead to a life-threatening condition known as the bends. But several divers, including Jonathan, do not have enough air to safely reach the surface. Fortunately, teammates are there to assist. Day 6. No whale sharks in sight.
3 dives punctuated by a snorkel in deep water. But there was nothing.
Even a series of time-lapse shots taken throughout the day fails to turn up any whale sharks. The current has now picked up speed. The team struggles to hold on to the reef. The end of this expedition is just days away. Finally, on day 8, with only 3 more days of diving left, there is a subtle shift in conditions below the arch. The southbound current has slowed.
Dropping in, we feel the change. Galapagos sharks are hugging the rocks. Silkies patrolling the blue. And yes, swimming gently along the wall, a small, approximately 3.5 meter whale shark.
This one is too small to tag, but it could be a sign that the whale sharks are back. By afternoon, the northbound current is surging. Day 9. In his log, Jonathan notes that the trip now hangs in the balance, but that it may not be in his power to tip it in their direction.
Hanging at 25 meters, I see a dark form above and out to the blue. Then clearly the outline of a shark. I head out to swim under and then rise up on the left flank. The shot will be easier from the right, so exchanging sides, I move forward and the shot goes in just fore and to the right of the dorsal fin. The harpoon slides back out and the tag 108-103 glides off to an unknown destination.
This time, it's the beginning of the dive, and Jonathan has enough air to stay and take in the scene.
I crawl south across the balcony and just lie there for about 10 minutes as the hammerheads just stream by. Their silver and bronze sheen almost aglow in the midday light, like celestial bodies floating in aquatic space. Far too beautiful to capture in mere words. I wish I could exchange my gun for my camera. But instead, capture the image in my mind, mine forever.
It's the final day of the expedition. Eduardo Espinosa, a scientist with the Galápagos National Park and a seasoned shark tagger, sees a shark they'll come to know as Margarita. Based on her size, 12 meters long, Margarita is 30 to 40 years old. And a survivor, judging by the circular bites or propeller marks on her lower abdomen. Later on, Jonathan finds Margarita still at the reef, identifying her by her tag number. Here's an opportunity to get a closer look. With the current sweeping him away, he descends to the rocks below.
She's barely moving against the current. I drop back, then use the rocks to get ahead. I float up, then pass below her, checking her huge belly for signs of birthing. Nothing I can detect, but then this is hardly my area of expertise.
If a newborn shark does come into the world, several jacks are there ready to grab a meal. The cool season is now drawing to a close. On land, the turbulence of mating season is overtaking the colonies of marine iguanas. The big males keep a watchful eye on their harems and on the other sires that may challenge them. Out at sea, the water is getting warmer as the Humboldt Current slows and equatorial currents push south. This is the time when humpbacks and other whales head back south to summer feeding grounds off Antarctica. With less prey in the waters off Darwin Island, jacks, tuna, and other large predators move away. So do the crowds of sharks, including the whale sharks. Margarita, the shark with the circular bites or propeller marks, headed north. She wandered about for a month, then her signal disappeared. She'll be easy to recognize if they see her again on a future trip to Darwin's Arch. Most likely, she headed south with the other sharks that still had their tags on, including Jaws, a shark they called Sin Nombre, George, the only male in the group, and Carla. They all went to a region off the coast of Peru, lined with steep ridges. These are some of the most fertile waters on the planet. Deep, nutrient-rich currents rise to the surface, and sea life is abundant year-round. If the female sharks are giving birth up north, perhaps this is where they are finding their males, as well as the food supply that will sustain them on their way back to the Galápagos and beyond. The data included a few notable exceptions, like Ranger, who was on her way down the coast of South America when her tag stopped transmitting, and Kimberly, the teenager last seen heading south in the mid-Pacific. When the study began, almost nothing was known about the parade of whale sharks that passes by Darwin Island. More years of research are needed to find out just how widely they travel, where they go to give birth, and what is it that draws them in such numbers to this narrow, rocky reef? Darwin Island was born in the formation of the Galápagos Rift Zone around 3.5 million years ago. That's recent compared to the tens of millions of years that whale sharks have plied the oceans. As we search for fleeting glimpses into their lives and history, we marvel at their return to this realm of giant sharks.